You are listening to the Special Needs Children podcast with Chitra Iyer, the CEO of MFA and a trustee with the Forum for Autism.
Hello, everyone. A big warm welcome to all of you on this expert series of my podcast for special needs children. Thank you so much for your time and agreeing to doing this interview with me today, Aniket. Hi.
Hi. It's nice to talk to you.
Thank you. So, everyone, I'm really thrilled to have Aniket with us here. Aniket is a co-founder of Powered by Austics. He was diagnosed just 3 years ago, and we will ask him also about why he needed to get diagnosed as we go into the interview. He's an accomplished Android developer with 12 years experience in the tech industry. Aniket is renowned not only for his tech innovation, but also for his commitment to equality, mental health, and neurodiversity. His work includes everything from creating apps for parents and children to empowering individuals to achieve their goals. So please do stay tuned to hear much more about his journey and insights. Aniket, shall we begin?
Sure. Let's start.
So Aniket, very first question coming to you is, as a lately, just recently diagnosed autistic, what are your thoughts on why you or anyone needs to get diagnosed?
So I think it's very important for every neurodivergent person to know that they're neurodivergent, because the most common experience that people have is they don't know, and they think that they're supposed to be like everyone else, but they cannot be, and then they assume that they are a broken human being. I had thought this myself when I was younger and up to quite recently. And when I'm talking to other autistic adults, so many, this is the one thing, we have so many differences between ourselves, but this one thing is common between all of the late diagnosed autistics. They feel they are not being human correctly, that they're missing something or the other, which is affecting all their relationships and their lives and their interactions with the outside. So if you just knew we're autistic, I see a lot of parents say that we don't want to give our kid this label that, oh, you're autistic, so you're different. But the thing is, we have labels anyway. We are called lazy, we're called loners, we're called introverts, we're called antisocial, we're called disruptive. We're called so many other things when actually we're just autistic. And we need help with certain things. And we wouldn't appear as almost any of those negative things if we just knew we're autistic and we accommodated ourselves. This goes for several neurodivergences, but this is the autistic experience that adults have. If you don't tell us we're autistic, we just assume we're broken instead.
Okay. So if you could just continue with that train of thought, that what was the necessity? Why did you feel that I need to find a person? And you've also mentioned that it was very difficult to find the right person to diagnose you, because as we all know, people think that only children get diagnosed with autism, right?
Yeah. So when I first found out I could be autistic, I wanted to check, and I had read that, okay, this is a thing you can be diagnosed for. So I figured it would be easy, like you have a cold or you're feeling sick or something, so you go to the doctor and it's not a big procedure. You're supposed to get it reasonably quickly. I assumed in my naivety at that time that it would be something like that. So I went out looking for an autism diagnosis, just as a small quick procedure that I thought I could get. And the first thing I heard from several different organizations is that there's no test for adults. Like, we basically do not have the means to test an adult for autism. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. And I found out that abroad, they do test adults. So I figured it's just that maybe this place doesn't know. And I would spend a very long time. I would search on Google Maps, what are the nearby psychiatric organizations. I called them, and that went nowhere. The few times that I went in person, and I was talking to this person, and she's telling me that there are no autistic adults. And I'm like, okay, so how do you explain this, which I'm experiencing? And And when I realized, and I was like watching her face, she was talking to me like just like any service provider would talk to any potential customer. You had the standard business voice. And then and I could see the moment that she realized that, hey, I could be autistic. And her tone and her body language, everything, turned to condescending. So I could see that, oh, I have convinced her I'm autistic. She still doesn't know any test for it, but now she's treating me like a child. So I have seen her face turn in front of me. And sometimes I wonder, I've been talking to this lady. So I've been talking to her for about like 10, 15 minutes. And I was wondering, and then she starts to baby talk me when she realizes that, okay, I could be autistic. And I'm like, we have been having a conversation for the past 10, 15 minutes. I clearly have a better vocabulary than you. And somehow you suddenly think because I'm autistic, you can start to talk down to me. So I realized that there is a bigger problem here, apart from there just not being tests that these people know about, but also in the perception of autistics in the eyes of medical personnel. So I tried quite hard to find that because I expected it to happen. So very autistically, I just kept trying until I could do it. And I thought it would happen in like a week, and it took over a year until I could find someone who even had a test that could evaluate adult autistics. And the thing is, I found out I was autistic because I was during COVID, I was reading a whole lot of books. I'd finished watching everything on Netflix. There's nothing else to do. So I was just reading a whole bunch of books. And I had accidentally come across this book written by an autistic author. And for the first time, I feel my life is being paralleled by this character. And this character is having experiences that I had realized that I'd never seen in any media before. And I was like, it stunned me. Like when I was reading that book, I went to tell my wife, like, there's something really crazy. This book is describing my experiences, which I've never seen described anywhere else. And I got her to read the book, and she agreed that, yeah, that's exactly me. And then by the end of the book, the character realizes he's autistic, and he makes adjustments to his life, and it has a great happy ending. The book is The Bride Test by Helen Hoang, Hoang. It's an amazing book, and it was my first experience of autism being described by another autistic person. I had very briefly read about autism in like charities or whatnot. And I thought, yeah, okay, I don't look like that. I don't talk like that. I'm probably not autistic. And that's what it feels like to have your experience described by a neurotypical, by someone who's not autistic. It feels alien. They can be describing your experience through such a different lens that it doesn't even feel like your experience. Now, after talking to parents and after being in the autistic community for 3 years, I understand why they think that way. And I can see how they can get this misinterpretation of what I'm feeling. But this is a problem that I would continue to notice over and over. We autistic people feel something and we do something because of that feeling. And neurotypicals look at that, they interpret it through their lens. You can always see that they're like, the thought which they don't realize they're thinking is, why would a neurotypical person do this? And then they describe autistic actions through that lens of why a neurotypical person would do it. And that's why they go so badly wrong. That's why autistics can be described as without emotion, simply because we mostly don't have those expressions on our faces. And our body language doesn't match what they would expect. And they jump to a conclusion thinking that this means we don't have emotions at all, when it's just that we're not showing them the same way that they would. So, and that is one among many reasons that, it's a part of your being autistic is how your brain works. It affects every single thing about your life. Just like being neurotypical affects everything about how you experience the world and how you interact with the world. So it's very important to know that you're doing these things differently, you're experiencing these things differently because you're autistic. So you can't expect like 50 people around you to have the same reaction. It's okay for one person out of these 50 to not have the same experience as the other 50, of like a sound that is painful, of a light that's too bright, of feeling inexplicably tired in a social situation. All of those things, you look around, you don't see anybody else reacting like that, and you think, am I imagining it? We say that to ourselves. Like, are we sure we feel this way? And that is also one of the core autistic experiences. To many people, even after they're diagnosed, they feel, are we really autistic? I don't think I am because they are not fitting the stereotype that neurotypicals have created for them. So these are doubts that we have ourselves. And it's kind of like a internalized ableism where, of course, we're all different people. We are not going to be exactly the same. We have a very limited set of common experiences. But yeah, so that's why it's important. So there's a difference between knowing you're autistic and getting diagnosed. And the way I see it in my mind is knowing you're autistic means that, okay, you expect other people to not have the same experiences as you, and your experiences are valid and fine. That's what it means to know you're autistic. To be diagnosed means I have gone to someone else and paid them money to tell me something about myself, which is okay. It's if you are not confident in yourself, if you haven't seen yourself reflected in enough media, if you have been gaslit throughout your whole life into thinking maybe you're just normal and lazy, then it might help to actually get a diagnosis and confirm for yourself. This is why Powered by Autistics does diagnoses. And this is why I tell every person who goes through me, if you're sure you're autistic, here are the books that you should read. Here are the things you should that you can accommodate yourself with. Join the group where we are, where there are 160 autistic adults, and talk about your experiences. We'll help you out. But if you doubt yourself so much that you're not sure, then you can go for a diagnosis. So I see those things as I would personally find it quite insulting that somebody else is going to look at my life history. I have to convince them about all of this, that I'm feeling the things that I feel. Because most of my life, I have that experience. I'm telling someone like, hey, this really hurts. And they're like, it shouldn't hurt. I'm like, okay, it shouldn't hurt. Maybe I'm just weak and sensitive. And now as an adult, I know that was not true. So yeah, it's very important to know, but diagnosed, I don't think it matters.
Got it. And really sad that you have to go through that experience. I don't know how many more people are really experiencing this, but let me come straight to why did you feel the need to therefore set up Powered by Autistics along with Sudhanshu? Can you please share about this whole journey of yours?
Yeah. So one of the first things that I did after I found out I was autistic is like, great, okay, I know I'm autistic even before I need to be diagnosed. I'm like, so what do I do? And you'll find this is a very autistic way of thinking that, all right, whatever your feelings are, but like we can't feel those very clearly anyway. So I just need to know what to do. And when I went to find out what to do, I went expecting services. I thought that, okay, there will be some sort of a coaching service or a book or something to tell you like, these are the kinds of things that will help. These are the kinds of problems you might have. And this is how other people have done it before you. That is what I was looking for. And what I found was website after website of charities catering to children. And that too in a pretty condescending way. Part of the nature of making a product for children is you're not selling to kids because kids don't make the choice to buy. You're always selling to parents. So all of the marketing, all of the content, all of the advert, all of that is geared towards the parents And all of that because of, like, one of the problems when you turn autism support into a business is that if you're incredibly unethical, you can just tell your parents, this is a massive problem with your child. They're not going to be normal. They're not going to have a good life. You have to act now. Run, don't walk to your closest place to give me money for what is wrong with your child. And it is incredibly and to do that, you have to basically talk about all of the terrible things that happen with autism. And website after, it's not even one website, it's so many websites, one after the other. They all talk down to, and they're incredibly insulting to all autistics in an attempt to sell to their parents that this is a big medical problem which you have to pay a lot of money to fix with your child. Everything about that is fundamentally wrong. Every single thing about it. It doesn't help the kids. It's looting the parents out of their money. That is even like straightforward services, not even getting into the outright scams of the cures. There is no cure for autism. There isn't even any medication for autism. There is nothing you can do for it except for learning what you're saying. So that's a big thing itself. I'll get into that. But basically, there's no medicine, there's no cure. It doesn't exist nowhere in the world. And it frustrates me to see that not only are all of these services geared to children, also geared towards just taking all the parents' money that they can. And I don't see anything in this which is actually helpful. Now that I have accommodated myself over a couple of years, and I've been accommodating myself even before I knew I was autistic, I can look at that and see that almost none of it is helpful. The one good autism support service that exists is probably occupational therapy. That is undoubtedly helpful. And basically none of the rest of it is. So I was frustrated that this was my experience searching for services that would help me. And I wasn't looking for a charity. I was looking for a business that I can pay money to, and they will help me with this service which I wanted. And then I learned that there is none. And on top of that, I had not seen at that time a single service run by an actually autistic person. Imagine if you're a woman and you go for something related to women's services and you only ever see organizations run by men. You would doubt that too. You're like, okay, maybe, but certainly everything for women cannot be run by men. That doesn't make sense. You will literally not know what problems to address if you are not one of us.
Yeah. Right.
You wouldn't trust a women's rights organization which has entirely male executive directorship. That something's wrong there. So similarly, I was looking for organizations with autistic leadership, not just employees. I wanted a majority of the executive leadership to be autistic. And at the time, I didn't run into anything like that. So I figured, great, like I should just create that. I had been part of working in tech for so long, 12 years. As you go higher and higher in your job, you realize the need to understand the business more and more. So I had been reading quite a bit about business over the years, and I'd been applying that at my jobs. So I figured that when a service doesn't exist, great, you can make one. And that's just a good opportunity. And that's why Powered by Autistics exists. It was founded with the explicit purpose of only ever being led by autistics, and all of the work for it, our website design, our website creations, everything related to Powered by Autistics is created by autistic people. Sudhanshu was who my sister put me in touch with. My sister's friend runs an occupational therapy center, and she knew Sudhanshu. So I got put in touch with Sudhanshu. So I knew her from near the beginning of my journey, and I felt, so first of all, she is autistic. She was a chemical engineer, and when her kid got diagnosed with autism, she gave up her career and moved to a city where they could have better services for autistic kids. She would later go on to join a charity for autism where she would rise to the head of education. And I said, like, so I met her quite late, and I said, you know what, uh, why don't we start our own business? Because she was in there practicing the day to day, the day to day of the autism support services. And I had just found out I was autistic, and I was like, let's. But I was also making very good money at my engineering job, so I said, why don't I fund whatever we need to fund, and you can take care of the day to day services. So for a long time, that's just how it ran. Sudhanshu decided the services.
Lovely.
She conducted the actual operations, and I just earned money at my job and funded whatever we needed. Like, one of the things I funded was her training for teaching non-speaking autistics how to type to communicate. It's not just typing to communicate, but basically like giving them means of communicating uh, with the world, with their people. So she had the certifications, she had the experience actually being in the field and carrying out the things. I just had the money. So I figured, so I just put the idea in my head, like, join me. Let's do whatever we want to do. Let's do what we think is right. Let's create the services which we know are needed. And she being autistic herself, I didn't have to explain more than that. She got what I meant. And we were on the same page right from the beginning. And it wasn't immediate. Over a year or two or something, she eventually came around and she's like, okay, great, let's do this. And we've been working together ever since.
It's absolutely wonderful. Can you please share now about, what exactly are the services that you offer and what does the future look like for you all?
All right. So first, I'll talk about the things which I had wanted to do, and then I'll talk about our existing services. I am a big fan of modifying the environment to suit me. And I've done this in my own house with like modified lightings, soundproof windows. I particularly am extremely sensitive to sound, so I need the soundproof windows. And we have a modified doorbell which isn't as loud. We have my accommodations are built into the house, so it's very comfortable for me to be in here. And I have a separate batch of accommodations which I use if I'm going outside. Because so I wanted, and all of this was very normal for me because that's just I work in tech, so I feel like, okay, let's solve our problems with tailored technology to do whatever we needed to do. And when I talk to other autistic people, I find out that they may have discovered some of it on their own, but mostly the stuff which I take for granted, which makes me comfortable on a day-to-day basis, is pretty much unknown in the wider autistic community, or the resources are very fragmented. So I wanted to put together a post-diagnosis support program, mainly tailored for adult autistics, which helps us navigate the world and make things easier for us. Separately, I was in a group of parents for I think over a year now, probably 2 years now. I've been in a group listening to parents ask questions about their kids, and this group is currently run by Preeti. So I've seen through what lens parents understand their kids, And because I know the autistic side of it, I can see, okay, why are they seeing what we are doing as that? So I wanted to talk about a basic version of the uh, of the adult accommodations for parents, to talk them through how they can make their kids more comfortable, how they can see their kids' behaviors differently. And the number one thing that upsets me is many of these people, they may have a doctor, they may have they may have an occupational therapist, they may have a speech therapist, but they haven't heard of what a meltdown or a shutdown is. The very basic things that you need to manage, like to manage autistic kids or to manage even autistic adults, they just haven't heard of it. And these are being treated as anger outbursts or suddenly sleeping or suddenly sitting down on the road. And I'm like, so there is a lot of awareness that we can do here. There's a lot of equipment that you can wear to manage our senses so that we don't get overwhelmed, so that we don't shut down in these situations. Our quality of life can be so much better than it is. So this, and basically the technology part of it, like I wanted to make a specific doorbell which isn't as loud, which can send you notifications to your phone and such without it being incredibly expensive. So those are the things which I'm working on, and I'll probably bring it out. But right now, what we are involved in is, let me just look through this real quick. We have this saved because Sudhanshu runs a lot of this stuff. I don't remember much of it myself. So there is a group for adults, which I think should remain just for adults. But Sudhanshu and I were thinking of maybe opening a group for kids as well, because it's very important for kids to see other people like them. A lot of the way we do a lot of everyday activities, they can't be the same as neurotypicals because we have different strengths and weaknesses. So I think that group would be quite helpful. So we do autistics. So we do parent support when the kid is diagnosed. We do diagnosis of kids and adults. And
can you share your second button, Aniket? Aniket, can you please share that? Can you please share that if somebody wishes to get themselves diagnosed today, what are they supposed to go fill up? Which kind of a form? Where do they get it? Whom are they supposed to approach? Can you please share?
So the easiest way is to reach out to Sudhanshu on our Powered by Autistics business number. So it's a WhatsApp number. I'll share that with you. Perhaps you can add it to your podcast description. Or they can go to the poweredbyautistics.com website. And there's a form there to just give your name and number. If you fill that up, we'll get in touch with you.
Okay.
So
yeah, I think about the services.
Yeah. So I think the unique thing about our services is Sudhanshu is not only autistic, but she's a parent. She's a parent of a couple of autistic kids herself. So when we do parent counseling and when we do kid counseling, she is professionally trained. She has the certifications to do this, but also she has the lived experience of being an autistic mother of autistic kids, and she has a deeper insight than you could typically get.
Got it. So, if I could move on a little bit away back to, when you were working, and even now, you did talk about all of the accommodations that you got done at home, right? Can you please share about the kind of accommodations that you needed at work, and how did you go about it, and was it conducive in terms of your work and your career place or not?
Well, it kind of works. The thing is, there are no accommodations as such. Certainly, there were none back when I started working 12 years ago. We didn't even know. I didn't know I was autistic. We didn't know there were any. Mostly, people were pretty much unaware of autism in the workplace. But the thing is, engineering is a very autistic industry. If you think about the stereotypes of autism, they are all they are. If you look at the stereotypes of autism and the stereotypes of engineering, of people who become engineers, they're the same. So all the engineering stereotypes they're just autistic stereotypes. And I feel so. If you read the book Neurotribes by Steve Silverman, you'll see the whole concept of, oh, there's a sudden explosion in the number of autistic people. That whole thing started when Silicon Valley began, when the engineers got concentrated in one place and they started receiving life-changing amounts of money on a regular basis. They had all these autistic people who were a large number of those engineers who founded Silicon Valley. They had kids and they noticed that, hey, something's off with their kids. And they had the resources to fly in the best medical help from across the world to Silicon Valley to have a look at their kids. And now suddenly there's a high rate of kids being diagnosed with autism because they are the kids of these autistic engineers who finally have the resources to direct them to where they are needed. And that's why they suddenly thought that, oh, wow, there's like an explosion in the number of autistic people, but the number hasn't changed. It's just that we have the money to have visibility at that time. So engineering itself is the stereotypes help me. It just helped in engineering. It was expected that if you're an exceptional engineer, you can be weird. You can do things differently. You are expected to be not so great at interpersonal connection. It is somewhat expected during engineering. So those expectations always worked in my favor. I was direct with my bosses. I would contradict him. I would say, why are you doing this? I would say this is, when he's talking about how long something's taking, I can be like, you can try it and see if it's faster. I'm doing it as fast as it can be done. And then he, to his credit, actually did try it. And he's like, okay, I get why you're taking so long. Go ahead. And I'm like, thanks. So the whole disregarding hierarchy and talking directly to your superiors was kind of expected a bit because it's engineering. And that just helped me out. It helped. I was exceptional at my work and I was granted leeway to be extremely weird. So they didn't mind as long as I got my work done. And that was good enough for them. That's just how engineering works. I was in my first office, there was a really loud fan and I could never focus with that loud fan going off in the corner. Somehow nobody else seemed to care about the fan, so they couldn't get it moved or replaced, unsurprisingly. So that decade ago, I began using earplugs to work because I always needed earplugs to work. Otherwise, the noise would be too distracting. And this would set a theme that any accommodations I have to bring myself. I have to advocate for myself to my bosses. And either they listen or I'm fired, and both were fine with me because I also come from a place of economic privilege. So it didn't matter to me that I could take risks that would otherwise not be possible if I really needed the money. So I had my earplugs. I refused to work on some of the equipment which was malfunctioning and was flickering. And I said, like, this has to be changed or I'm not working enough. And it was changed. It was changed because I was expected to be a weird engineer with weird requests, which just had to be fulfilled because I do good work. I would go off. So in the evening of one of my offices, when they would turn on the lights, the white lights give me quite a headache. And whenever they did that, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to go off and sit in the conference room with all the lights off. And that's the light from other rooms was enough to light that place for me. I would be sitting there. Other people would not know I'm in there because it was so dark, they couldn't see me. And they would walk in and be surprised that I'm in there. And I'm like, hello, this is the correct light for me to do my work. And I was just allowed to do that. Again, because I was exceptional at my work. And engineers can do weird things if they're pretty. These are the nature of the accommodations that I have. That I had to figure out what would help me. I had to do them, and then I had to fight against people who thought they were not necessary. And finally, at a very recent job, uh, we we had started. I had started working there right at the beginning of the pandemic, just when the first shutdown happened and all the public spaces were closed. So they were going to lease an office, but they started fully remote instead because we literally couldn't go to an office. And the company just stayed remote for all these years, for like 3+ years. And being remote, we also had a culture of keeping the video camera off. So I would take meetings I would take meetings pacing around. I would take meetings like fiddling with other things, like stimming with whatever is around me. I could lie down. I could stretch. I could do whatever I wanted physically. I didn't have to sit in one place. With the video camera off and everything fully remote, that worked perfectly well. And it didn't matter. Like I could just unmute and talk whenever I needed to talk. And that worked. So those are accommodations that really work. I also had, I think engineering is particularly conducive to, it's fine to be weird, which may get you fired from other jobs. We are expected to be a very sociable people person. I didn't have that expectation. People just looked at the quality of my work and they're like, yeah, that's great. Let's pay this guy a lot of money to do what he does. And let's ignore that he is super weird. So that's pretty much it. Those are the accommodations that I had in my workplace. And thankfully, I had people who would listen, because sometimes I'm explaining a concept and they don't get what I'm saying, or they think it's something else. And I had the benefit of having some people who would ask, okay, I don't understand what you said. Could you explain it? And I would realize I was explaining like an advanced version. I was skipping steps in the explanation because that's just how I understood it. I understood the complexity and I was talking about the complexity and they're like, why does that complexity exist? I had to explain a couple of those steps and then like, okay, cool, that makes sense. When someone could easily think that it could be interpreted as, oh, I'm unnecessarily complicating things. But when they had the patience to come and ask me, why is this complicated? And I can tell them, and then they're like, oh, right, you're right about that. That is a very important accommodation. We need neurotypical people to ask why. When an autistic person is doing something you don't understand, just ask them why. And that is such a big accommodation to have. Because we can just explain it to you. If we're laughing and you don't understand why, just ask. You'll get to hear a joke. Right? It applies to so many things. And I just have to touch on, nowadays, you see big companies with, say, autism support programs. For instance, Microsoft has one. And they only have the program in the United States. And what a weird thing that is, right? A global company with no shortage of money. They have this program only in the United States, even when they have significant operations here in India itself. So, and there are several other companies which have autistic support programs, which have hired autistic people that I know. And what happens is they are incredibly useless, to the point where I feel the primary purpose of a company advertising that they support autistics is the PR. They have not committed to having the very basics of a system which I can think of, which would support autistic people. There is no oversight. There's no feedback from autistic people. It's not even run by autistic people. The things they do are half-hearted and pointless, and they're only PR moves. There is no company that I know of which actually supports autistic people, whether they have these programs or not. And any company that has these programs is just for the social capital of saying that they help some poor disabled person. They are not actually committed to doing the work. I've seen them spend more effort on marketing their program on LinkedIn and other places than actually putting that effort into running the program. So the only accommodations that currently exist for autistic people are the ones that we take for ourselves. And I have taken a lot of them.
Wow. Can I ask you, while you were studying and schooling and college, etc., what was happening at home? What's the kind of support from your parents and now your wife, if you can share?
Yeah. So my parents had a very low touch method of parenting. They love me. They have never understood me. Even now, when I can explain what's happening, you don't quite understand, which is okay because they love me and they try to do the stuff that I'm saying, even if they don't understand why I'm saying. So in school, I think like the greatest support that my parents have given me is just believing me when I say things. So, for instance, very early on, my dad was sitting there to help me with my English, not to help, but to just like make sure I do my English homework or something. So the homework involved reading a chapter and then answering some like just like reading this chapter or something. So I sat there with the book. I'm looking at it. I'm turning pages, and I'm done. And I tell my dad, "Hey, I'm done. I'm gonna go play now." And then he's like, "You didn't read that book." And I was so confused. I'm like, "What do you mean? You told me to read it, so I read the book." And he's like, "You're just turning pages. You're not saying anything. It's just so fast." And I'm like, "Yeah, because I read the book. I just read very fast." So then I was like, so then he asked me questions about what I was reading, and I could answer every single one of them. And then he's like, "Oh, okay. You're turning pages so quickly that I don't think you're reading it, but do know everything that is in the story right now. So I'm just going to assume that's how you read." And they just believed me on many, many things like that, which on some level, I think that they still think I'm lying somehow, but they're just like, "All right, let's just believe them." And yeah, that was a big support. Then, so I was very good at a couple of subjects in school. I was very bad at a couple of other subjects, the classic autistic spiky profile. And they never hassled me about the subjects which I'm bad at. They're just like, "Okay, do whatever you can there. Let's just score good enough marks to get into some kind of college, and that's good enough for us." They didn't put a whole lot of pressure on me to do those things. And they let me just study the way like to study the way I needed to study. And that helped. It's not like I scored some great marks. But I scored enough, I guess. Marks, I would later come to learn that people exaggerate the importance of marks quite a bit. And your success in life depends on so much more than what marks you have. But yeah, that's it. They just believe me. They didn't understand what was happening. I didn't understand what was happening. I just said, "Hey, this is how I feel I need to do things. Let me do it." And they're like, "Okay." So in college, what happened in college? I struggled really bad, as many gifted kids do. Suddenly, your routines aren't so set. Things are random. The classes are in like the subjects are held in random classes. Sometimes the classes change. You don't even my college didn't even know, like they couldn't tell me when are the exams. I just wanted one table of which exam is when in the whole year. They don't have this table. I would learn. They in fact don't even know the dates themselves. They would randomly decide dates at whatever time. Well, it wasn't even guaranteed to be in the same month. And you post it on some obscure bulletin board, which I wouldn't know. And I always wondered. And I missed several exams in college simply because I didn't know they were there that day. And I would look and I would ask other people, like, "Okay, but other people are showing up for the exams." And yeah, everyone knows where the exam is. And I'm like, "How do you know when and where the exam is?" And they would say, "Oh, my friends told me." And I'm like, that's the problem. Because I didn't really have any friends in school or college. So I was completely out of the loop on this. And the so the only support which I really needed in college was a fixed schedule of exams that is given to you in advance. And I would have done a whole lot better in school. I would have done a whole lot better in college. But this got so bad that it's a longer story. But to summarize, I was given incorrect information about one particular exam by every single professor who taught that subject. I went personally to each one of them to ask, is my understanding of this exam correct? Like, is it supposed to be held like this? Are these the mark requirements? I asked 5 different professors and the HOD. They all gave me information which was wrong. And I found out it was wrong when after the exam, I went to get the results. Nobody knows where my result is. I have to go talk to the principal, and the principal says, "Oh, you were told that about the exam, is it? Well, that's wrong. So now you have failed again." And that's how I failed out of college, because I realized if you tell me what the rules are, I can try to follow them. But if I have gone to personally verify the rule which I think exists with almost your entire staff, and none of them knows that, and I find out after I fail, and that's why I have to repeat a year, I cannot succeed in this system. So I dropped out of college.
Got it.
And my parents supported me through that. They're like, all right,
Wow.
fine, you dropped out of college. It's okay. You can do something, you can just find a job, something or the other, you'll be all right. And they bore with me for like 2 years, like until I eventually got into engineering without a degree, and I've had a pretty decent career.
That's great. So you are extremely passionate about raising awareness on autism, on neurodiversity, everything. You are out there listening to people, guiding them. So do you feel that you found your tribe of people who are at least willing to listen to you now?
I have never expected people to listen to me. I have gotten used to being right and being ignored simultaneously forever. So, see, if you like somebody listening to this podcast, somebody coming to this specifically to listen to me, they have a reason to listen to me, so they're going to listen. But if I was talking, I am very sure that if a neurotypical is hearing me talk in a regular conversation, they would think I am introverted or shy, or I would escape their notice because I'm not speaking in varied enough tones to catch their attention. So even now, I get ignored on a regular basis by pretty much every neurotypical, unless they have a really good reason to listen to me. So, such as, hey, listen to this podcast. So I expect it, and it's not a big deal for me because I am happy with my wife. I'm happy with my family. I'm happy with my 2 friends. And that is a lot of social interaction for me. And in my outreach, people listen to me sometimes they don't. And that's okay, because I'm just talking for whoever wants to listen. If you can get something out of what I said and it helps you, that's great. I'm happy about it. If I'm ignored, I'm like, that is to be expected. So I used to think that my tribe was engineers when I was like 10, 15 years younger. And I realized that I thought that because engineering culture is very similar to autistic culture, because we set that culture. It is built on autistic culture. So, and now that I actually found other autistic people, I realized I identify with this even more than engineering. I've never felt part of any group my whole life except engineers first. And now I realize it's just the worldwide group of autistic people. So yeah, I found like 2, 3 more good friends. And that's more than I ever thought I'd have. So I'm quite happy with that.
Wow. That was actually my next question about what makes you happy.
What makes me happy is being able. So, like, I spend a lot of effort to not being in pain. There are various sensory sensitivities that have me in pain for a large part of the day. So I'm happy if I am in a very minimal amount of pain. That's a great time. If you talk to any person with a chronic condition, they'll get it. There is no such thing as no pain, but there is a such thing as, hey, this is the least pain I've been in the last 30 days. That's amazing. So that makes me happy. I enjoy goofing around with my wife. My wife is also ADHD. And that's why I can just tell her, like, hey, you know what, this light is too bright. And she knows exactly what I mean. And she also has sensory sensitivities. So she also can say stuff like, I need to, like, we are having a conversation with a group of friends. She's like, I need to go lie down for 5 minutes. I'm like, yeah, go ahead. And that's very normal for us, especially in our friend group, which is neurodivergent. Any one of us may just nope out and go lie down for 10 minutes just to recover, and they'll be back, and and like now they can participate with full energy. That's just our normal. That's just our friends too. So we have our own. It's said that autistics are often off in their own world, and I wish we really were, because most of the time, what you're describing when you're saying an autistic person is off in their own world is we are dissociating from all the trauma. Our brains have shut down. We've shut down our senses because everything around us is so traumatic. That's just dissociation. And when we actually get to live in a world that is constructed for us, like in my house, when I'm meeting my friends, when I'm meeting my autistic and ADHD friends, that is us living in our world, where all of us are fully supported, accommodated, and understood without really having to go into a 1 hour explanation of why we need to lie down for a while, and then we're back in the conversation. Because all of us do that, so we all instinctively understand.
That's so beautiful, Aniket. Thank you for sharing that. That's lovely in terms of your space of happiness. Can I ask you something completely different?
Yeah, sure.
What do you, how much do you take in terms of decisions about money? When did you start learning about it, and how have you gone about it in terms of planning your finances, etc.?
So I feel I had a pretty luxurious childhood. I could, so I still had to, like, I had to bargain with my parents. Like, I wanted a lot of Archie comics, and I hated to have haircuts. So they're like, you know what, you can have an Archie comic every time you go for a haircut. And that worked great. So that would actually get me, because the sensory feeling of getting a haircut is very irritating. So having a nice thing at the end of it was good. So I got so much as a child. It was a perfectly normal, maybe a bit upper middle class life as a kid. And the only thing I ever wanted as an adult is to just maintain that lifestyle. I think it's a very small percentage of India that even gets to be in the middle class. So I think that's a pretty good goal. And when I found out I was autistic, not just when I found out I was autistic, I realized that I needed a lot of things that tended to be expensive. I have expensive tastes in food. I have expensive tastes in like say the electronic equipment that I want to buy, and just like regular things like I need an air purifier in my room. Otherwise, I get because I've got asthma and the air in India is not great. So without that, I'll get up like coughing every morning. But with the air purifier, I'm perfectly fine. So I realized that, okay, I seem to need a lot of stuff, which other people don't seem to need. And all of this stuff costs money. So I need to make a lot of money. And I thought engineering was a great way for that. Engineers do get paid a lot. So I always knew from the time I was young that, hey, I just want to maintain this lifestyle. I asked my dad what his salary was. I asked my dad what it costs to maintain this house, what it costs to do all the things that all the things that I got used to in my childhood. I'm like, okay, so that's my target. I have to earn this much. And my dad was an engineer himself, so he had a pretty decent salary. And for me, I was a very hyper and independent kind of kid. And I understand this is a kind of trauma because nobody else knows or will understand my needs if I say them. So I just have to take care of them myself. So I knew that if I want this much money, I have to earn it myself, and I have to take care of always having that much money. And I went doing my engineering for a couple of years. About 5 years into my engineering, I realized the value of negotiation. And till today, negotiation is one of my special interests, and it's the only way anyone ever gets paid. It is, I feel like parents should not tell their kids, work hard, you'll have a good life. That is absolutely not true. That is not how capitalism works. That is not how the world works. You can work very hard and have nothing to show for it. And there are a lot of people who work really hard their whole lives and they still lack a lot of things that they wanted. So work hard for your own satisfaction because you should feel like you did a good job. But your money comes from negotiation. So I learned to negotiate, and I go pretty hard in negotiation because for me, money is protection. It is safety. My soundproof windows are 2 lakh. Without them, I am in pain. If I don't have money, I have pain. So it's like a direct connection in my mind. I have to negotiate. I have to learn how to negotiate. I have to practice. I have to go out and take what I want because it will not be given. And then once I have a good amount of money from all the salary negotiations, I Google the advice for saving, and it seems to be geared to a different social class of people. That doesn't really work when you're earning a lot. So I thought that, okay, what do I want? I want to be able to continue to live this lifestyle even if I'm fired, which means that my monthly expenses should be less than half of my monthly income. So that if I'm working for 2 years, I should be able to fund my lifestyle for 2 years without earning anything. So I got lucky enough that I put one third of my salary in mutual funds. I have a finance friend who helped me select mutual funds, and I just buy the funds. I put 1/3 in savings, and I spend out of the last 1/3. So because I'm paranoid, if I run out of money, I run out of protection. I run out of safety. So it's much closer to my heart than I feel it is for a lot of other people. I find that surprising because money is the same thing for everybody else. It is the power to change the world around you, to make it safer for you.
Yeah. And you understood that so beautifully, and you're applying it so well.
My equipment is expensive. If I'm heading outside, I need to put on my AirPods Pro, which are 25,000. And I need to put on my industrial earmuffs on top of it, which is another 3,500. So without that, I would be in tremendous pain. So I am very serious about negotiating because money is protection. So the number itself doesn't quite matter, but the more the better. That's how much protection you can have. So
yeah.
And that also helps. And when you get beyond your own protection, then it is the power to influence the world. I can fund the things that I think Power by Autistics needs to do, and we can make that change in the world.
Yes.
So that's what it's for. And that's true for every disabled person. There's an estimate somewhere that if you're disabled, your cost of living is about 30% higher than someone who's not disabled. Yeah. Because of all the specialized things you need. Yeah. So anyone who's disabled very well knows that your life is more expensive. So it's very important for us to really go after that hard in negotiations to get the money that you need.
It's lovely. I'm going to chat with you separately about the money aspect again. But on the podcast, I'm coming to the last question now. Is, you know, a lot of people are going to really, especially maybe parents as well as those who are autistic themselves who are listening to you, would like to first reach out to you, or would like, is there anything that you would like to tell them? The way you have gone about understanding and figuring out what you want to do with your life, can you please give whatever you feel in terms of what parents need to do for their kids, or what the individuals themselves need to do to look out for themselves? Can you please share your thoughts?
That's a good distinction, because parents have to do different things and the autistic people have to do different things.
Okay.
So I'll start with what autistic people need to know. We are not neurotypical. We are disabled by our neurology, and so we cannot do some things. We can't do a lot of things the way that neurotypical people can do them. And this is not your fault. If you need a wheelchair, you get a wheelchair, and now you demand ramps into buildings so that you can get into that building with a wheelchair. None of that is a moral judgment. None of that makes you a weak person. That is just all the ways a person can be. Disabled people are a normal part of humanity who have always existed along with humanity from the time it began. And anyone who is able-bodied today, if you're lucky to live old, to be an old enough age, you will also be disabled. Everyone gets disabled in their own age. So it would be good if society was structured around accepting disabled people as a normal part of life, so that we can be in all the places that the able-bodied people can be. So the first thing for disabled people, accept that you are disabled. Don't try to do things the way neurotypicals do them. You think about in which way can you achieve what you really want. In which way can you achieve safety? In which way can you achieve connection? In which way can you achieve happiness? And you will probably have to think about it from first principles. You can't just look at what neurotypical people are doing, because that method won't work for you. But I promise you, you can find something better. So you recognize that you need to do things differently. You figure out what works for you and you do it that way. Make it easy for you. This is not a contest to see who struggles. That doesn't matter. You're just trying to live a happy, successful life in the way that you define happiness, in the way that you define success. Find your own. Don't struggle unnecessarily. That's what I'll tell the disabled people, like all my fellow autistic people. Oh, and you need to enforce your boundaries. You 100% need to figure out what your boundaries are, number one, and then enforce them relentlessly. Because everyone will tell you that it's bad to have boundaries, that it conflicts with your work culture, your social culture, your whatever it is. Somebody will tell you that it's wrong to have boundaries. You must ignore that. Find your boundaries, enforce your boundaries. For parents, I want them to realize that there is a vested commercial interest in making you feel like there is a big problem with your kid. It is very profitable to take advantage of your desperation. And they're going to tell you that your kid can't live a normal life, and they're going to tell you that it's a bad thing. And I 100% do not live a normal life, but it's a good thing. And I know I am a speaking autistic, and one of the other autistics who I feel the most kinship with is a non-speaking autistic who is proud, who's powerful, who's confident, and she can't speak. And I wish that all of the autistics that I knew could have 10% of her confidence. So make your kids proud of who they are. Let them, like, don't expect them to follow the same path or the same daily activities that you find with neurotypical people. I have a lot of help. I have hired 2 maids to help with cooking and cleaning. I have a robot that cleans my house because I don't like folks in my personal space too much. I take a lot of support. This is why I don't like the term high support. I feel that I have a lot of support needs. And it's just that I pay for them myself. So it doesn't look like I don't look terribly disabled, but I am very disabled. So and it's important for neurotypical autistic parents get this already, but it's important for neurotypical parents to know that different is not a dirty word. It is a neurotypical urge to fit in with the crowd because that is what the neurotypical brain tries to do. It tries to conform, and it feels dangerous for the neurotypical brain to not conform. It feels like a risk. It feels scary. And if you have a disabled kid, you have to let go of wanting to conform. You're not going to fit into this society the way it exists currently. And I hope you choose to educate and cut off relatives who can't be respectful to your kids rather than trying to conform your kid into what fits in this society. Because like sometimes I see parents talking about, oh, we can sign them up for all of this therapy, and we can this Ayurveda guy is promising that it'll be a cure or whatever it is. And I'm like, none of that is real. There is no medicine, there is no cure for autism. Occupational therapy helps. Understanding who they are and accommodating themselves helps. But you will never fit in. If you are disabled, you'll 100% never fit into general society, at least in this generation. Hopefully, eventually we will. We should, but we don't right now. And that is not our problem, it is society's problem. That doesn't accommodate disability. So you're not going to fit in, forget about that. If you want your kid to be happy, go off the beaten path with them. Be there for them, help them discover their strengths, and help them cover up their weaknesses. But that doesn't mean fitting into neurotypical society. They will never look or be the same as a neurotypical kid. Hopefully, with your support, they can be better.
I am really speechless. Thank you so much, Aniket, for this. And thanks a ton for saying it out so brutally, honestly, openly, with so much of love and wanting to help everyone out there. I'm a mother. I completely understand and know what you're saying, understand what you're saying, and appreciate it 200%. Thanks for this.
Yeah.
Everything that you shared about your own journey, about overcoming, understanding, accommodating, every single aspect was lovely. And I'm sure everyone who's going to listen to this is going to take away a lot that will help them, their own families, their own children, or they themselves. And hats off to you for being able to do this so beautifully. Thank you.
I didn't have any choice when I was trying. Hopefully, we can move into a world where it doesn't have to be so hard to just live a normal life.
Completely. And I understand. I just hope everyone understands what are all the kind of when you face challenges, instead of making it more challenging, if they can be more understanding, I guess those all of the incidents that you shared in your life, be it the college or be it anywhere, at a workplace, etc. All of that, if that can be, made easy right from understanding the need to get a diagnosis to finding a person to get diagnosed. All of these. I hope that, with some something that you've set up so beautifully, more and more people will be able to come to a resource place like yours that powered by Autistics, and will be able to help themselves, right? And will be
Yeah,
guided by you and Sudhanshu to do what is required for themselves.
yeah, I hope so too.
Yes, so more power to you to grow really big and to help all of the people out there who wish to know more about themselves and know how to go about managing their lives. So thank you again. Thanks a ton.
You were listening to the Special Needs Children podcast with Chitra Iyer, the CEO of MFA and a trustee with the Forum for Autism. Chitra Iyer is a parent of 25-year-old Shravan Iyer who has epilepsy, cerebral palsy and autism. She is the CEO of MFA and has been helping families with life-centered planning to reach their personal financial goals. She is also a trustee of a parent support group, the Forum for Autism, which was set up almost 2 decades ago. MFA is an 18-year-old organization in the personal finance space. They have set up a dedicated practice to help families with special needs children to plan their financial goals and invest for them. The thoughts shared here are a result of the discussion with parents, caregivers, siblings, and professionals regarding the planning of a person with special needs. If you find this podcast relevant and interesting, it will be great if you leave a review, share, like, and subscribe. You can also let us know if there is any specific topic that you would like us to cover. Feel free to email her on chitra.iyer@myfinad.com, or you can call her on 9833 785 892. That is 9833 785 892.